There's a tree in France that was already old when Shakespeare was born. It has survived wars, storms, droughts, and centuries of human chaos. And did not do it by growing fast. It did by growing deep. When was the last time you felt completely certain of who you are? Not who your job says you are. Not who your followers think you are. Not the version of you that performs for other people. But you, the real one. The one underneath all the noise. If that question feels uncomfortable, if you had to pause, or if no clear answer came, you're not alone. We live in an age that is very good at telling us who to be, what to want, how to look, how fast to grow, what success should look like, and exactly how long it should take. And somewhere in the middle of all that noise, a lot of us lost the thread back to ourselves. We became anxious, unsteady, easily shaken. One bad comment, one failure, one comparison away from feeling like we're not enough. And the strangest part? We've been searching for the answer in all the noisiest places, when the answer has been quietly growing in the forest. For 400 years, an oak tree begins as something almost laughably small. An acorn, smaller than your thumb. You could hold a dozen in your palm. And for the first several years of its life, almost nothing seems to happen above ground. If you watched an oak for its first decade, you might think it was failing. You'd see a small, unimpressive sapling while other faster-growing trees, poplars, willows, silver birch, shoot up tall and dramatic beside it. You might think the oak was losing. But here's what you cannot see. Beneath the surface, the oak is doing something extraordinary. It is building its root system. Every year, the oak sends its roots deeper, wider, further into the earth, seeking water, seeking minerals, seeking stability. Its root system can eventually mirror its canopy, stretching as wide underground as the tree stands tall above. It is not ignoring the surface. It is preparing for it. And then, one day, after years of quiet, invisible work, the oak begins to rise. And when it rises in a way that the faster trees simply cannot. Because the oak doesn't just grow up. It grows unshakably. A storm that snaps a young poplar in half will barely move a mature oak. Not because the oak is rigid, but because its roots go so deep that the storm has nothing to grab onto. The wind gets the branches. It never gets the roots. And I want you to sit with that for a moment. Because that oak, that patient, deep-rooted, slow-growing oak, is a portrait of what it means to build a genuine identity. Here's what modern psychology tells us about identity. We don't arrive in the world knowing who we are. Identity is built. It is constructed layer by layer through experience, reflection, failure, values, and time. But here's the problem. We live in a culture that rewards the performance of identity over the construction of it. Be bold. Be a brand. Know yourself. Show yourself. Post it. Prove it. And do it now, because if you're not growing fast, you're falling behind. So instead of building roots, we build facades. We choose identities like outfits, picking whatever gets the most approval. The hustle persona, the spiritual one, the successful one, the carefree one. And we swap them when they stop working, when the likes dry up, when the version of us people seem to love starts to feel like a cage. And then comes the quiet crisis, the one nobody posts about. Who am I actually? There is a concept in psychology called identity diffusion. It describes the state of not having a clear or stable sense of self. And psychologist Erik Erikson, who spent his life studying human development, believed this was one of the deepest sources of anxiety a person can experience. Not failure, not loss, not knowing who you are. Because when you don't know who you are, every external event becomes a threat. Every criticism lands like a verdict. Every comparison is a referendum on your worth. You bend to whoever is in the room. You become whoever the moment seems to need. You become like a young tree with no roots. Tall, perhaps. Impressive, maybe. But one storm away from breaking. Now, let me tell you about a man named Viktor. Viktor Frankl was an Austrian psychiatrist who survived the Nazi concentration camps of World War II. He lost his family. He lost his freedom. He lost almost everything the world said a person needs to be okay. And yet he did not lose himself. In the camps, he observed something that haunted him and fascinated him at the same time. Some prisoners, People who had defined themselves entirely by their role, their status, their profession, their possessions, collapsed quickly. Not just physically, psychologically. When everything external was stripped away, there was nothing left inside to stand on. But others, people who had a deep, rooted sense of meaning, of values, of who they were at their core, those people maintained something extraordinary. Their dignity, their identity, their inner self. Frankl wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. That is a man with roots, a man the storm got hold of completely, brutally, and could not break." And here's where the oak teaches us something else, something that even psychology sometimes forgets to say. Your roots don't have to be dramatic. They don't have to be forged in suffering or crisis or extraordinary circumstances. The oak doesn't build its roots through heroic gestures. It builds them through consistency, through showing up every single day, in the dark, in the cold, in the quiet seasons when nothing seems to be happening. It builds roots by asking not how do I look, but how deep am I going? Your values are your roots, not the values you say you have, not the ones that sound good, the ones you actually return to when life gets hard, when you're scared, when nobody's watching. Your curiosity is a root. Your love for certain people is a root. Your sense of what is right and what is wrong, however imperfect, is a root. The things that make you feel like you, not the you that's performing, but the you that's alone and completely honest, those are roots. And every time you choose them, every time you act in alignment with who you genuinely are, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's unpopular, you go a little deeper. The roots don't care that nobody can see them. That is the whole point. And the other thing about the oak, the thing I find most human about it, it doesn't grow in a straight line. It grows in all directions. It bends around obstacles. It responds to the light. One branch reaches south, another twists east. The shape of every oak is unique, carved by its specific soil, its specific history, the specific storms it survived. No two oaks are alike, not because they try to be different, but because they were each completely, unapologetically themselves. Your identity is not supposed to look like anyone else's. Your roots grow in your soil. Your branches reach toward your light. Your shape is carved by your particular life. And the obsession with looking like someone else's tree, that is how you stay small. That is how you build shallow. That is how you break. So how do you build roots? How do you grow into an identity that is genuinely, deeply yours? The oak doesn't have a morning routine for this. It doesn't have a 5-step program. It just does what it is. But we can learn from how it does it. The first lesson, go slower than the world wants you to. The world will always push for visible surface growth, results, output, proof. But the oak knows that the invisible work, the inner work, is the only work that actually counts. The journal you keep that no one reads. The values you clarify when you're alone. The quiet acts of being honest about what you actually want from your life. These are root building. They don't look impressive. They are everything. The second lesson, survive your winters without losing yourself. Every oak faces winter. Every single one. The leaves fall. The growth stops.